Hi everyone, and welcome back to the videos for physio students and new grads. Today's video is for students particularly about to start in September for their degree. I'm joined by Megan, Nadia and Chloe today, and we're going to be talking about our experiences at university, things we've learnt that we did well, things we learnt maybe we didn't do so well, and we're going to try and share those experiences with you. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. Okay, so we're just going to go through some introductions. So just first of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name's James Armstrong, and I've just graduated from the University of Plymouth with a Bachelor of Science Honours degree in Physiotherapy. How about you, Megan?
So I'm Megan Wisson, and I'm soon to be finishing in September a Master's in Physiotherapy at King's College London.
Brilliant. Chloe?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Chloe Dooley. I've just graduated with a BSc from Cardiff University.
Fantastic. And Nadia?
I'm Nadia Mathers. I just graduated from Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen.
Brilliant. And Nadia, were you doing a 4-year course, is that right?
Yeah, it's BSc.
BSc over 4 years. And Megan, can you just briefly, because for those who aren't doing the Masters, just explain what that actually means?
So it's just a sort of accelerated version of the BSc from what I understand, and it's across the 2 years. So we don't get the nice summer break. You tend to, so in your second year, how it's worked in my degree, in your second year, your summer is just taken up with dissertation, and then in your first year summer, you're on placements. Fantastic.
So a super intense version of the Bachelor of Science Hons degree. So that's great. Okay, right. So let's get on with the questions. Okay. Right, here we go. So we're going to kick off this roundtable conversation. That we're going to pick apart our experiences from our university days, which was very recent. So hopefully it's going to be at the forefront of our minds and share those with you guys. So I think we're going to start off with something that we've had at university that we think, do you know what, if I was to go back, I would do that slightly differently. So who wants to kick off? Should we go with, let's go with Chloe. Chloe, if you were to go back to university.
I had this vibe then you're going to come straight to me. For me, definitely. And I think I've only really kind of realised this literally the final few months of university. It was, if I could go back and change something, it would be to not put so much pressure on myself. You know, my second and third years, I was like, I need to do everything. You know, I need to be getting the top marks in placement. You know, I need to be spending every hour doing something physio. And actually, looking back now, that's not the case. And, you know, I've done some amazing things, and I've been really lucky with how much I've been able to learn through kind of like just throwing myself kind of heads into everything. But actually now looking back, I realised I probably should have done that without the pressure on myself. You know, I should have been, perhaps some things that I was doing should have been more because I was really wanting to do them rather than because I was putting the pressure on myself to kind of just be this kind of like, you know, I don't know, the best kind of student physio that I could be. And I think a lot of that was kind of more in university. So kind of like when you're out on placement, I don't know, you're kind of, you're always on edge, aren't you? Because you're like, well, I'm being marked by these people, so I want everything I do to be perfect. But realistically, no one is perfect. So I would definitely say put less pressure on myself, both in university and outside of university, because I think I probably would have enjoyed some aspects of it more if I'd have done that.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd agree with that for sure. I think one of the things that I would take away from my university 3 years was that just the pressure on marks and being perfect, because for some reason we start our university as, you know, we've never done physio, majority of us. We're certainly not physios. We're brand new and we've done a week of induction at university. We start our first module and all of a sudden we put this pressure on ourselves that we're going to be perfect at physio. And then if you look back now and you look back and think, hang on a minute, why were we thinking that when we had no experience of being physios? So it's easy to look back on,
Yeah.
but we just did. And I think it's inherent part of kind of being a physio. We do want to be perfect. We want to do the very best to be the best physios. But yeah, I'd totally agree with that, Chloe, definitely. Megan, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'd agree as well. Yeah, so similar to that, I've kind of got two. So I would agree to kind of take the pressure off, because whilst we've kind of got this excuse as being a student, you can kind of throw yourself into all the different opportunities, which I think maybe some of them I didn't kind of think that I could throw myself into. Like Chloe, I remember seeing you on Twitter doing like an elective placement in Vietnam and stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, I've missed that opportunity that I could have had because I'm a student, which maybe you might not have the opportunity again in the future, maybe you will, but just a thing like that, taking the pressure off and being able to do those things that you enjoy, as well as getting the grades and everything in the background. But my other main one would be the importance of practical sessions. I don't know about you guys, but when we were in a practical session, sometimes I found it hard to kind of imagine that the person in front of me is a patient and things like that. And then when I get on a placement and I'm in front of an actual patient, I'm like, oh, I can't remember doing this at all. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a practical session, I think if I was a bit more concentrating on when I would apply this in practice, who I would apply it to, what caseload, then when it's actually in front of me in real life, I would kind of remember those skills and be able to do it a bit more seamlessly and not be worrying, where to put my hands and what to do, because I've already done it on loads of people in my practical classes. I don't think I realised how kind of relevant they were at the time. So I'd pay more attention in those.
It's different. It's easy to look back on though, isn't it? And with all of this, I think like the whole of this half-hour conversation we're going to have, I think we're really aware that it's easy to look back on. Hence why we're kind of doing this. So Nadia, what about you in terms of?
So yeah, I kind of agree with those. I've got kind of two things as well. So first being definitely not to put so much pressure on exams. So really the majority of your skills are going to come from placements. So yeah, obviously your exams, you have your practicals, you have your theory, but I think I put way too much pressure on myself, to have, good grades with essays and, other practicals and things. But even if you don't do so well, you'll still learn from it. And that's definitely something I learned first and second year, and it made me better as well as I went on. And the second thing is definitely, whilst on placements, learn to ask questions constantly. There's no stupid questions, which is something I also developed over the 4 years, building up my confidence to, ask questions, challenge theories as well. If your educator has said something, ask them why. Again, it's just confidence, practice. I definitely think one of the most important things is to just ask questions.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I think, yeah, when I remember on placements, I always used to think I'm asking too many questions because I love to know why and maybe a bit more than needed. But I always got feedback from educators that they really liked that. And it was always a surprise to me. Yeah. So I think that.
Yeah, because it shows that you're a good communicator as well.
Yeah.
And it definitely reflects well with your assessment in your placements.
I think on that note, if you're asking lots of questions though, has anyone got any tips on how to ask those questions? Because I think we may have loads and loads of questions. Is it good to ask all those questions as they come to your head to your educator, or would you store them for the end of the day? How have you guys managed asking the questions?
That kind of varies for me depending on what it is. If it's something I think I can go away and read up on a bit more, something a bit more theory based, then maybe I'll go and do that first. If it's little questions or kind of things I'm reflecting on or want to know a bit more of the clinical reasoning, I'll maybe ask sort of after seeing that patient, when you're like at the sink washing your hands, whatever, or writing the notes, I'd maybe ask it then. But as well, it's kind of just working out how you work with your educator, and maybe in those first few days, kind of putting some boundaries in place about when I've got questions, when do you want me to ask them, or when are you going to provide me with feedback and stuff like that. I think it's worked better when I've had that conversation up front with my educator, because then I know when they're approachable and when they're not wanting me to come and nag them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think with the questions, a lot of the time, when I would always carry like a little notebook around in my pocket. So if I had a patient with pathology that I wasn't sure on, or, you know, I had a question about some clinical reasoning, I would jot it down as it came to my head. And then kind of at the end of the day, I would kind of work out, okay, which of these questions can I probably go away myself and sort of have a read about, and then which ones do I need to ask my educator. And I think sometimes your educators really kind of like really value when they see that you don't know something, but you're kind of like mature enough and like an independent learner to take yourself away and kind of like almost like self-teach yourself. So I think a lot of physio actually, like, especially once you kind of make that jump from student to new grad, a lot of it is kind of like you're kind of like independent learning, and kind of that's going to be different for everyone depending on their strengths and weaknesses. So I think actually being able to do that, but yeah, like you said, having a conversation with your educator and finding out do they want to have kind of like a session at the start of the day where you ask about the previous day, or do they like to do it before they go home? Do they do like, you know, I had one placement where I kind of, it was one of my outpatient ones towards like the end of my degree, so they would sort of give me my caseload for the week, and then sort of midway through the week we'd have like an hour block where I could kind of like bring patients and we talk through them. So that was a little bit more kind of like almost forced me to do that independent learning, but in a way it was one of the placements I learned the most from. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially about kind of taking initiative and you know, bringing forward these questions. With my placements, I don't think there was kind of a set time in the day where we would, you know, set aside time. It would depend on what type of educator you had. So most of mine were quite open, and you were able to chat through whilst you were doing your assessments, or just after whilst writing up notes, like what you said, Megan. It's just completely different depending on where you are. Lots of people, you know, educators are so different, as you probably know, different ways of learning, different ways of teaching. And yeah, I disagree with both of you, because everyone's different. You know, I used to take notes, I used to just come out with the questions, I used to wait till the end of the day, and you know, you always forget stuff because the amount of knowledge you're taking in on placements is like immense. So you're always going to remember something like the next day or even the next week. And yeah, so it's just however you feel is most beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but the biggest thing there is ask your educator, because we just said they're all different. Everyone, you know, we're all different as well. But I think it's a good one to show your appreciation of their time as well, and that goes into communication skills and appreciation of team working and all those sorts of things as well. Asking them right at the beginning, kind of, if I have questions, when would you like me to come and ask you? Would you like them as and when? Would you like to come at the end of the day? Would you like to set a time around your workload, because I appreciate you're busy? That sort of stuff is, I think it always goes down really, really well. So that's cool. So another thing I think, Chloe, you mentioned there about, and we all mentioned about opportunities. So taking opportunities at university, because this one I think really can be quite difficult, because you can either be really, really keen and really ambitious and really want to go for it and take on loads of opportunities, everything under the sun, and that's one way of doing it, and that has its pros and cons. Or you could be quite sort of shy and a bit cautious and holding back about taking on opportunities. Are there any things whilst you guys have been at university that you just think that's something that I would definitely do again as an opportunity, because it really helped? Kind of just let us know what it helped with and why you would do it again. So let's go Nadia. We'll go back down.
So there's definitely quite a few things I did at university that really helped me with, you know, building up my CPD as well. So I did a few things like, for example, at my uni there was this thing called an access course where they had sort of school children come in, and we were able to teach them about physio, take them around different practical stations, and it was a good way to kind of build up that sort of mentorship skills within yourself that you would then take on in the future to your future role. And also when you're on placement as well, you know, you might be doing an in-service, like a training in-service. So all of the things you're doing is sort of impacting on what you can take forward, which is what's really important as well. You need to keep it relevant to how you're going to take it forward.
Yeah.
And other things, you know, I was just involved with societies at uni. The Physio Society was also really good because lots of sort of sport massage opportunities came up. Opportunities to volunteer at open days. Yeah, just take whatever you can get really, because it does, even if it's just the tiniest thing that you think, oh, that won't give me much experience, actually it develops you even more and you're more confident talking about your profession, you're more confident you know, going on and selling your profession as well, especially things like open days. It's really nice actually, it kind of reinforces your passion for things as well as you go along uni.
Yeah, definitely. Megan?
So in my undergrad, I did a lot of took on a lot of extra responsibilities and like extracurricular stuff outside of the degree. And this is what I've missed in a master's course. So I've been commuting into London for my master's, which I think hindered that side of things a little bit, as well as just the master's, I think having quite a few more contact hours than the BSc course. So you're kind of, in your head, you're sort of like, I've had my uni fun now, I've just got to concentrate on the course, when actually I think I would have benefited from pushing myself that a bit further and seeking out those things that I enjoy and the little aspects of physio that I want to know more about. So yeah, there's none that I've necessarily done over the past few years in my MSc, but I definitely missed that side of uni. So I'd encourage people to do it so you don't kind of have those little regrets about, oh, what about if I went down that route and things like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, really interesting. How about you, Chloe? So we've kind of gone from what we've done that's really good. Megan saying there, you know, actually you missed doing it because you didn't. So that's kind of a big tick in the box for taking on opportunities. So Chloe, I know you've done a fair bit during your Bachelor of Science degree. So tell us a bit, which was the kind of the ones that really you thought you got the most out of and that you'd recommend?
There's probably two for me that I think kind of were most enjoyable and I kind of learned the most from. I would say the first one would probably be being part of the CSP student reference group. I remember when that kind of was all being advertised for the roles and you could apply, and like, you know, at that point I was sort of just kind of dipping my toes into like physio Twitter. I mean, we all know that's kind of a whole new world. And I sort of remember seeing it but thinking, no, I'm not good enough for that. Like, you know, I didn't even consider it because I just wasn't confident enough in myself that I would kind of be the right person for it. And then I remember I went along as kind of just a student volunteer to the annual rep conference, which basically run by the CSP every year, and it's where kind of members get to vote on what topics they want the council to kind of, you know, discuss and work on for the next 12 months. And for me, that was kind of a real eye-opener of what is going on outside of the four walls of your university, because I think it's very easy to kind of just be like focused on the degree, and you know, and that has to be top priority, that's why you're there and whatnot. But actually this was suddenly like a whoa, there's so much more outside of just studying. And it was actually that, and speaking to some of the other like kind of students there who were like, this is an amazing opportunity, like go for it, you know, we don't need someone who's perfect, we just need someone who's willing to put the effort in. And that's definitely what like I found with being part of that group was like I've kind of learned so many skills coming from like leadership, like communication, you know, and while they're not necessarily those kind of like academic, you know, knowledge-based skills, they've helped me hugely both in like placement, applying for jobs, and just kind of feeling more like, you know, confident in myself. So definitely that, plus met some amazing people through it, which is always a bonus. And you know, it's really nice to kind of have people all over the country from that you can kind of follow everyone's journeys and kind of see where they're at. That's really, really nice. The second opportunity I'd say would be my elective placement in Vietnam. like if you get the chance on your course to do a placement abroad, like wherever it is, I would definitely say take it. I was really lucky that I got quite a lot of fundraising money for it, so I was able to go, because I realized it's not the type of thing that you can just do at the drop of a hat. They're not cheap to go on, but it was so eye-opening to kind of see how not only how physio is sort of appreciated and interpreted in a different culture, but also kind of how lucky we are to have our NHS. And I think as a student, sometimes you don't really appreciate the sort of that kind of like, it's almost like a family environment, isn't it, that you've got in the NHS, where everyone supports everyone. And while I think there's quite a lot, you see so much bad press about it, we're so lucky that we have access to all of the kind of resources through the NHS healthcare that we do. So and obviously the travel side of it as well. But I think the big takeaway from it all is, you are good enough for it. Whatever opportunities you see, like, just take them. And even if I know people that were really disappointed this year because they didn't get on the student reference group, but that's not a failure. You've gone through an application, you've put yourself forward with that, so that in itself. So yeah, just definitely, like the other two have said, take any opportunity you can get.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, there's two things really. Well, no, two things I'd say. Like, one would be proactive about finding opportunities. Don't think that they're all going to be land on your lap all the time. I think as a student, you need to think about what do you want to get and what's out there, and also listen to your lecturers and stuff, because they'll tell you what opportunities there are. And if you listen and think about it, they won't tell you how necessary to go and get it, but they'll tell you, oh, it might be good to go and do this or have some experience doing this. And then you just have to seek it out. And that's where I got one of my best experiences from. We were doing our neuro module, and we were doing Parkinson's disease. And they just told us about this Parkinson's exercise groups and things. And I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. So I actually sort of sought that out. I found the coordinator and I started volunteering for Parkinson's UK and the exercise group. And it was brilliant. I couldn't always go that regularly, and I haven't been for quite a while, obviously, with the situation we're in now in the pandemic. But it just taught me so much about actually being with patients that aren't patients. So these people are, they've got a story to tell about their Parkinson's disease, but they're also real people. And it really taught me that someone may have pathology, a condition that we learn in a textbook and in lectures, but these people are funny. They've had a career, they have a personality, some are rude. And at the end of the day, they're all human beings. And that really taught me that. So I didn't then go on placement and treat them as a Parkinson's person. They were just a person who happened to have Parkinson's, and that's how I was going to deal with them. So that was a really good opportunity. So if you've got any kind of groups like that, I would definitely take those on as a kind of a really good way of building up your skills with people, communication skills. So that's cool. So opportunities, definitely go out and seek them, find them. I thought the other thing I wanted to go on to was studying tips, because I know a lot of people, and I get probably messages on a weekly basis through the YouTube channels and stuff that I do, asking me about how did I deal with anatomy and physiology, because I'm pretty sure that everyone starting physiotherapy, I think they think that the whole first year or most of the whole degree is just about anatomy and physiology and origins, insertions, innovations, roots, you name it, all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to go through how you all learnt and dealt with learning your anatomy, learning the physiology side of things, and what tips and tricks. I'll kickstart this one just because I've just seen this chap over here. So this is kind of my tip, really. I'm not a parrot fashion kind of person. I found that really difficult. I had to learn and understand why that muscle did what it did, why it attached to that part of that bone, and why it was innervated by that nerve. So I found having things like a skeleton. I got some red plasticine. I haven't got it anymore, but I got red plasticine. I made it into strips, and I literally put it and attached it onto wherever the muscle inserted and originated from. And that really helped me picture the muscles. And then also just understanding that mechanism, that how the muscle actually worked, really helped me think about why it attached and originated from there. And then textbooks, flashcards were my next one, because I could take them everywhere for walks with the dog, to the beach, and everything. So I thought flashcards really worked for me. So those are my two ways. And thought it'd be really good to go through everyone else's, because everyone is different. So people who are watching this can pick and choose some of the things that we say now and try them. They may or not work, but at least you get some things to try. So Megan, what would work for you in terms of anatomy and physiology particularly, though?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd say try and work out how you learn, and then use that in your revision, in your studying. So if you're a visual learner, go with something a bit more like James. If you like writing stuff down, or if you like hearing it, go with whatever you learn best. The best way I thought about it was, with physio, you're learning the muscles and things not to pass the exam, but to apply to patients in day-to-day life when you're working. So I used to try and think of it as, if I'm looking at the shoulder, it would be like, this is a stroke patient and their shoulder strength has been compromised. What is this going to be looking like? What is the person like? And how can I apply then this knowledge of where the muscles are to my treatment? And that's how I would remember it a bit more, rather than just kind of parrot fashion learning it, because there's so many muscles and so many attachments. I just ended up getting everything confused. So yeah, application, I think, is the best way. Well, that's what I found. But
yeah. No, it's great. Yeah, that's good. Nadia, how about you? How did you find?
I used flashcards like yourself, and I also have a mini skeleton, so he's about that size. He's in the kitchen. I won't get him.
He's busy cooking.
Yeah, so pretty much the same. I really liked my skeleton. My mum got me in first year, so it was really helpful. It has sort of not bony landmarks, muscle origin insertions, and had a little book with it as well to tell you, what was what. And also I found the practicals the most beneficial, because that's what you're actually going to be doing. You're putting hands on, you're able to actually visualize what you're saying. So I'm a visual learner, so things like the skeleton and practicals really helped me, and even just things like YouTube videos as well, simple things like that. And of course, like textbooks, big Grey's Anatomy book, can't go wrong.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the videos. I think some really good quality YouTube videos out there. And for me, I just found that I needed to see things multiple times for it to kind of stick. So, I might watch a video kind of a couple of times, not back to back, but, spreading it out. And then you kind of almost build up this picture in your head. And then I think, like Megan said, then when you're actually got a patient in front of you, you can almost try and sort of picture that anatomy you've learned, and then apply it to the patient. I would also say as well, anatomy and physiology is hard. Everyone finds it hard. So I would say don't be disheartened if you're sat there at 10 o'clock and you've got the textbook in front of you and you're like, oh my God, I can't remember anything, because I think even, if you ask any qualified member of staff, they'll tell you that they can't remember all of the anatomy and physiology they learn. Like I say, it's having a good basic understanding that you can then use for that application. I'll be honest, I failed one of my exams and I'm here having just graduated, I've got a job. So it doesn't define you as a physio student, as long as you're kind of trying your best to find a way that works for you to learn it. You will get there eventually. The more that you do something, the more that you're going to remember it. And definitely once you got on placement, things stick way more. I remember on my degree at Cardiff, we don't go on placement until halfway through our second year, and then it's just back-to-back placement. I remember up until that point, I was like, I'm doing a physio degree, but I really feel like I don't know anything physio related. And then after one or two placements, it suddenly all just clicks, and you kind of have this link between here's all the knowledge I've got and here's how it applies. So, but that can be quite hard to see at the start, but when you look back at the end, it all does come together.
Definitely.
Yeah,
a quick go to physiology YouTube channel is the Ninja Nerds. They literally say,
I remember watching that.
they like draw out all the processes, and then when you're sat in that exam, you can picture like the diagrams that they drew. Saving grace, that was.
One for me was we did our neuro exam, Parkinson's. I just could not get my head around like the pathology of it. So I used I used Khan's Academy. Those, they were really good animations. I really finally was able to click after that. So
indirect and direct pathways. I won't test you on it now though, Nadia.
I got it in the exam as well.
beautiful basal ganglia. But yeah, no, I said the Khan Academy. I'm glad you said that, because I was racking my brains thinking, what did I use? Because it seems, the trouble is, it does seem so long ago. But yeah, that was amazing, because they do for all of things, and I'm still using now actually for just small things like anticoagulation. I've been looking at recently and stuff, and they've got all sorts of stuff. And I think, is it the Ninja Nerds or the Geeky Medics? I think it's the Geeky Medics is another one, and they're really good for when you get onto your respiratory and start looking at ABGs. I'll put links for all of these in the description, but that's cool.
I'll be giving you a call.
We have to as well, a massive kind of, I think, definite link to clinical physio, because there's some really good YouTube videos on there, and sort of webinars and things like that Khalid and gang do over at Clinical Physio. And then when you get onto Generation HP, and these guys are really good because they do stuff on the on Instagram and stuff as well, so it's very accessible. And the other one is Physio Tutors. I think they were I want to say they were the original. I know when I first started, they were the only one I ever found, really. I don't know if they were the original, so apologies if I got that wrong.
Kind of exploded, hasn't it, in the last year or so, resources, which is great for students because there's something out there for everyone, but kind of also sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. You're like, oh my god, so much good stuff out there, where do you start?
Yeah, definitely.
But you don't have to do it all, just kind of like pick and choose what works for you at the time, because there's so much out there that we're really lucky to have access to.
Definitely. So just to kind of step in here, just another opportunity as well would be the Physio Matters first steps. So Chloe and I are kind of involved in this new initiative that has started up, that's going to help students as well with a kind of a formal platform, I suppose it is, really, to run alongside all the other stuff that's going on. And we've just said a minute ago that there's an awful lot out there. And Chloe, I think you're saying this, there's loads, isn't there? But hopefully the first steps is going to bring that together. Do you want to add anything to that, Chloe, about first steps?
Yeah, just if you don't already follow us, it's at PM First Steps, Twitter and Instagram. We've got a newsletter out, so if you subscribe to that, there's loads of stuff for both students and new grads. And our video on CPD is out as well. So if you kind of want a bit more information on kind of the specifics of like, your CPD and what counts, that could be another good watch as well. But yeah, Megan's also been a contributor already, so definitely one to check out alongside James's stuff.
Definitely, I think it's looking to engage lots of students and stuff, so I think it's going to be really good. And then I'm shameless plug as well. There's, if on this you'll see there's loads of videos that I'm going to continually do to try and help loads of students. So yeah, lots of CPD stuff, as we said. There's loads of stuff out there. So okay, brilliant. So we're going to look at carrying on with the kind of studying skills side of things, looking at how you juggle studying and the amount of workload that there is as a physio student, because there's no escaping the fact that it is an intense course. It's not easy at the best of times. And I thought we'll go two things really, sort of how you manage your time during the normal studying week when you're at university, how we manage it when we're on placement, and those of you that have had jobs whilst at university, how you've managed to, and if you've managed to have a job at university, because I know that's something that's always on people's minds. Megan, how about you in terms of managing all that studying?
On placement, it's really hard, I think, because every day you're kind of discovering gaps in your knowledge that you don't know.
Yeah.
So you go home with sort of a new list every day of, I need to learn all this for tomorrow. but I think you need to put it into perspective and sort of make sure you're still having that work-life balance whilst on placement. And so just managing maybe little chunks each evening or on your commute if you can, and know that you're never going to learn all of that in one evening and things. So just be realistic with sort of bite-sized work in the evening. I think, was it Andrew Macaulay that spoke about that? He gave some really good tips about that in your previous video, which were helpful. Then in general student life, I would, lists are a big thing for me, and kind of breaking everything down. So, okay, maybe you've got a big essay to do, but that's in 5 different sections. So when are you going to get section 1 done by? When are you going to get section 2 done by? And just do deadlines like that, rather than looking at it as one big sort of 3,000 word essay, because then it seems really daunting and you don't know where to begin. Whereas if you know you're good at writing an introduction, you can just sit down and write that introduction and then be happy with what you've done that day. So yeah, just breaking everything down, because I think big goals can be really daunting, especially when you're looking at however many words you've got to get done in whatever short amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. Fab. Chloe?
Yeah, I would say kind of like when you're on placement, like giving yourself the time as well to relax, because if you've, I know some of my placements are an hour drive, so I'd be leaving the house like 7:30 in the morning, and then you won't get it back till like, 6 o'clock. And actually, if you then spend, a couple hours studying and go to bed, you're just going to be drained, because, your whole waking kind of hours are spent just doing physio. And I think it's important to remember as well that, you're already kind of like mentally working hard during the day on placement, because, like we said, everything is new. So don't feel like when you come home every evening that you need to do something. It's perfectly fine to leave placement some days and leave the work there. I think as long as you kind of give yourself time, whether that be at a weekend or before you go to placement. I'm quite an early morning person, so sometimes I'd rather come home, have my evening to kind of, do some exercise, chill, and then I'd rather get up an hour earlier in the morning and do something then. So it's kind of working out what time works for you. But I think the same goes with, uni life. Although you've got a little bit more time, I think that's also a great opportunity for you to enjoy everything else about university, go out to social events, go out and have food with your friends, go and join a sports club. Those things are equally important as the studying. So I think it's getting that balance. And like I was the same as Megan, I used to make lists. So I kind of have to-do lists, and then I prioritize things. So okay, this stuff needs doing today before I do any of the social stuff, and other stuff it was like, okay, this can kind of fit in when I've got a bit more time. I know for me, because I'm the type of person that like can't say no, so I'd always have all this stuff that I was doing, then I'd have uni work, then I'd have, my sport, like I run quite a lot. I did try to fit a part-time job in, but really it was like 1 or 2 weekend shifts that I could do. I know people that do fit it in, but they then have to compromise on other stuff. So, I would say it's that balance between everything. You can't have it as, all study or all social. It's got to be that balance. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the sort of after placement studying, so making sure that you're not causing yourself to burn out. So I would usually kind of consider taking time during the day if possible. Depends how busy your placement is, where you're situated, to try and get some study time at placement. And obviously if not, you could do some at home. But again, it's not essential. You're learning throughout the whole placement. You don't have to study every single night and learn it by the next day, because you're there to learn over a period of time. It's not like you have to know this instantly. Also, I also used a study timetable, so I kind of planned out throughout the week, what directed study I had and what deadlines I had. I colour coded them as well. So again, like if you're a visual learner, And then I said, what needs done by this day? What can I then move to do the next day? So I prioritised things as well. And I did have a part-time job from, I think it was third year, fourth year, I had a part-time job. And I just did 1 or 2 shifts at the weekends. And it managed to work out fine because I just made sure I did all my stuff during the week that I needed to, and maybe I would do like extra stuff on a Sunday or something. But it gave me that space to, get my head away from physio for a bit, see my work friends, go out at night at the weekends as well, which was nice.
I think having
Just
that
a little
life
point to add as well, I would say use your commute. I think Megan said about doing work on your, like I drove to a lot of my placements, so like I put on like podcasts in the car, and that's quite a good way to kind of like multitask your time. And then you go to placement and you can kind of be like to your educator, oh, like I listened to this podcast this morning, and I've seen a patient, who's got frozen shoulder later, and I might try this approach, and so that way you can kind of like integrate everything into one. So yeah, just a little tip there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, use a variety of stuff that's out there, because there is so much you can do whilst you're doing other things, like you say, driving, walking the dog, those sorts of things. Podcasts are great for that sort of stuff. Yeah, definitely. I think when I was on placement, one of the most important things I ever did was so I'm similar to Chloe, although not anywhere near level wise, in terms of running. But my best placements I had were when I trained more than the others. So I had a couple of placements where I was running 6-7 days a week, and I was doing the same mileage. I was doing both the 2 sessions I would normally do, just as I would at my running club. And I did really well on both those placements. They were my best ones. So having that, I think, some physical activity, I think as physios, we probably should know that more than anything. If you're just starting your physio degree, you will know that physical activity is key. And having that downtime where you're not sat down stuck in a book, and you kind of reinvigorates you as well to then get doing some work when you get back, or for the next day, for definite. I did manage to have a job. I was quite lucky though. It was very, very flexible. I got to work from home a bit, and go in when and if I felt like I needed to. So I was very lucky. But I think, as some of you guys have said already, that it is pretty hard. But if you're disciplined and you've got good to-do lists and you're good at time management, I think it's absolutely possible to have a job whilst you're doing a physio degree. I think right from the offset, though, I would be really open with your employer, and just to say that around exam times, you might need some time off. Because if you're leading up, depending on what your exams are like, if you're leading up to a practical OSCE exam, I don't think you're going to be wanting to work the 3 or 4 days leading up to that exam, potentially. It can get a bit daunting. So yeah, time management is critical. So has anyone got any other tips that they would give yourself if you were to start over again? Kind of anything else that you kind of would give yourself 3 or 4 years ago? I'll kick first one off, and that is we've said it already, and that's to not care so much about what percentage and what marks you get in, especially placements. I'll put that one out there mainly. Forget the grades in placement. Enjoy it, love it, take it all in, and work hard. Forget the grades. That'd be my first one. Who's next?
I would say to definitely just not compare yourself to others. Like, obviously learn from each other as much as you can, but don't compare yourself, because everyone's so different. Everyone learns different. Everyone's at different levels. People have done degrees before. I went in straight from school, so I was 17 when I started my degree. We're all at different stages, different levels, just mature students. So just don't compare yourself, because I think that's something I found myself doing a lot, which didn't help.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I did that all the time, and just you compare yourself to someone you don't even know sometimes, and now you're thinking, actually, how am I even comparing? Yeah, go for it, Megan.
I was going to say, don't take sort of feedback or criticism too personal. I think sometimes educators, if you've done something wrong, they have to be quite explicit and sort of say, you did this wrong and this is where you went wrong, but that's to help you learn. And it's not saying you're a rubbish physio, you don't know anything. It's just saying this one particular time you didn't perform as well as you could have, and this is why, and this is what you can do differently. And I think it's quite hard when you kind of go in and think you're bottom of the food chain, you're a student. It's hard to sort of not take that as a bit of a telling off, but actually they're doing it to benefit you. And I think if you learn early on to kind of take that on the chin and spin it around into a positive, and then next time when you come across that problem, you can show them that you learned from that, then it's only going to come off as positive. So that would be my one.
That's an amazing one. And I think I've said in a lot of the other interviews I've done with some of the other guests about making mistakes. And as a physio student, you're a student, you're going to make mistakes. And I think the best thing you can do about making a mistake is make it in front of your educator, make it in front of a qualified, so they see you make the mistake. And actually it's a good thing, because then they can help you learn from that mistake. If you make it on your own and you try and hide it, there's no learning to be had, and it's really hard to learn from that. So I think that's a great one. Yeah, definitely. How about you, Chloe? Anything?
Yeah, mine would just be to kind of say take opportunities that you get, whether that be through university or something external, or can be anything, but I would say have the confidence to take something on, and don't worry about failing, because I don't think as a student nothing should be seen as a failure, whether that's something on a placement, a piece of coursework, or something you apply for. Even if it doesn't have the desired outcome that you want, like Megan said, try and spin it around and get the positive from it. Okay, what did I learn? What have I identified as something that perhaps I can do some more work on, or something I want to practice more? And that's how we grow and develop. No one is perfect, and especially as a student, we've got so much to learn, which I think is really exciting, because it's like, you're like, where is my career going to take me? What kind of opportunities am I going to have? So yeah, just use everything as a learning opportunity, not as a failure, and take as many opportunities as you can get.
Definitely. And for those people watching this who've watched any of the interviews I've done, there's been some dramatic failures. We've got people of the likes of Tom Goom, who have have had a phenomenal career, and you find out that they really struggled and failed some of their practical exams. It happens. And I've met people recently that have got, thirds in their degrees. So, in essence, on paper, that's not the best degree in the world, but they're now a really successful band 8B in neuro, in physio. So it doesn't hinder you. It's how you learn from things. And for me, it's something else I just wanted to kind of touch on. We're going to wrap up in a second, and that's reflections. They were a revelation for me when I learned how to do them properly. I spent way too long on them for a while, but once I got into them and actually used them to learn from, they were brilliant. So in terms of making sure that you take an experience, you look at what you learned from it and how you're going to take that forward. Did anyone else find reflections good? Does anyone disagree with it? Has anyone got they didn't find them useful? Or did?
Yeah, no, I agree with the reflections. Definitely found them really useful, but I think it took me probably until halfway through third year to actually kind of get the point of them, because I think up until that point I was just doing them because uni told you to, it was on your mark scheme, but I never felt like I was getting much from it. And then suddenly, I don't know, I had this placement where my educator was like, you don't need to reflect on an entire week, reflect on a specific event. Have you seen a patient where perhaps their treatment didn't progress as you expected? Or, have you perhaps, done something slightly wrong? They were like, reflect on one specific event, because you're going to get way more from it. And having that piece of advice, suddenly I was able to kind of, rather than just reflecting on anything and everything, reflect on stuff that I actually wanted to learn from. And that was kind of like a big turning point for me. And now I'm like, yeah, anything that I do, I'm like, okay, I'm going to reflect on that specifically, rather than kind of a general kind of, because it ends up just being a bit waffly then, and you don't get as much from it. So
I was great at waffly reflections for quite a long time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Our uni really emphasised reflections, like right from first year, right from our first placement. You must do reflections, because that's the only way you're going to learn aside from your educators, obviously, doing your reflections for your own personal development, your confidence. So I really found reflections useful. And definitely I found as the years went on, my, waffling decreased and the efficiency and whatever quality of reflections turned out to be much better as you go on, and they really do benefit you, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think, how about you, Megan? Did you find them useful?
I'm not very good. I'm not good at the big formal reflections. I'm more, when I come out from seeing a patient, kind of jotting down quick things, what I think went well, what didn't go well, or I ask the practitioner that I went in with and said, what could I have done differently, or what went really well that I should carry on doing. And I found that a lot easier, because then when I'm doing it as I go along, I can then change that straight away with the next patient I see.
Yeah.
Whereas the big formal ones, the same as you guys, it hasn't clicked with me yet. So I don't really use those, to be honest, apart from if we need them for uni.
Fair enough. That's a good rounded point of view. I think that's great. I think one thing I did find, though, I think I went through probably about a year and a half of doing them as a matter of course and taking a long time to do them, and they used to take up a lot of my time on placement. And then I think it suddenly clicked a bit like you, Chloe, kind of maybe in the third year, certainly, whereby I wasn't doing as many. They were more useful, but also it kind of helped me, enable me to do them ad hoc, a bit like you were saying there, Megan. Actually, you find yourself reflecting just in your head. You find yourself doing it really a lot, thinking, okay, right, I've just seen that patient, it didn't go brilliantly. What didn't go brilliantly? What can I do with that patient next time to make it better, or with other patients? So I think with practice, you do suddenly starts being ingrained in you almost to reflect. But it does help you with learning outcomes. I think it does in whichever way you find in your own ways. So no, that's fantastic. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. So I just want to say thank you to all three of you just for kind of joining me and sharing your experiences from university. And I think it's going to be really useful for those joining their university degrees in September. And I think from all of us, the very best of luck to everyone who's starting their physio degree. It's the best degree in the world. It's the best profession in the world by a million miles. So you've made the right choice, and you're going to love it. Stick at it and enjoy it. So thank you very much, Megan, Chloe and Nadia. I'll hopefully maybe even get you on again soon, and we'll maybe even talk about transitioning into being a band 5 at some point as well in the near future. So all the best with everything you guys are doing, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye.